everyone. I'm Linda Sheldon-Fell, and this is Sister Diaries with Sunshine. Sunshine lives with multiple personalities, and earlier this week, she had to spend some time in court with her ex-husband, and that brought up a lot of emotions for some of the personalities. Take a look. Hi, Sunshine. How are you?
Good. How are you, Linda?
I'm doing well. So, you were in court a couple of days ago. And going to court is really hard for anybody. Nobody wants to spend a couple of hours in court. Yet, for someone living with D.I.D, it affects all your altars. Tell
Yeah.
us about it. What was that like for you? Who was affected the most by it? And what happened?
Um, well, it's a scary situation for a few of them. For
Excuse me.
instance, Boots. The judicial system, police officers, authority. Okay, anything of authority are very intimidating for
Okay.
the little ones. And Boots, now she was married to a cop. It was an abusive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so she learned not to trust policemen, and for circumstances of Rachel, um the rape incident,
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't a lot of, they didn't help her very much either. So no one came to the rescue of any of the alters because they hold that
Okay.
pain or trauma. So in their eyes is, if they didn't help them, then they hurt them. And so being in court, first of all, there's going through the metal detectors. There's an anxiety, that very high anxiety. Like I could feel myself and just shake from the inside. And I always make sure that I bring just a very minimum, like just my license or whatever, just so I don't have to be patted down and hopefully don't set off the alarms. For some reason,
Okay.
I always do, and it's probably the plates I have in my back. But then they have to take the scanner and they have to do it, and that's very intimidating for me. It's like I have to come up with excuses of, oh, it might be my boots, it might be my belt, it might be this, just to hurry up and get away from them.
Mm,
Now, going into the room itself, with a magistrate and people there, um, I found myself shaking very, to the point where I couldn't fill out papers that well. I had to be consciously just holding the paper in order to fill it out, and there was fear. Even though there was nothing that I should be fearful of, there was fear from all of them that something bad was going to happen.
okay. And so the fear, did all of your altars feel that fear? Or
Yes.
just, okay. And so
Well,
not only do you feel your own fear,
yes.
but you've got theirs layered on top.
Yes.
And were
Yes.
you able to identify what brought the fear on? Like, what were you afraid of or not? Was it just an overall uh, fear of being there
Um,
and having someone say this isn't the way it should be, or XYZ?
right. It was both. There was fear myself, of not knowing what to expect, not looking bad, not wanting to look stupid, all those crazy normal things, but like, multiplied, because it's very, very, important for the system that, no one sees anything, abnormal, or questions, because if that's the case, then maybe they're not going to believe you. They're not, it just brings up a whole lot of things that you always have to have that mask on to pretend everything is okay, even though everything on the inside isn't.
And so
you
that
know
must take a lot of effort.
it takes a very much a lot of effort. It's exhausting.
That's what I
Yes,
was just thinking, is
was,
that it must be exhausting for all of you. And
yes,
but in particular, the younger alters with
yes.
Sarah and Abigail, who are 5 and 7.
Yes.
How do you manage that with them? How do you reassure them that there's no danger, and
Um,
it's going to be okay?
I, I try. See, it's really hard for me because I don't communicate with them. Like I'm getting better at trying to, um, like I'll say something like, Sarah, you can do this if you would like to, and she can hear me, and so then I know, she'll do it, or it. So we're kind of learning to communicate that way.
Okay.
But there's a fear that I feel in my stomach, and then there were the blankets. It was a very trying day when I came to during different times of the day. There was the gingerbread, and then there was Abigail had a blanket, and so they don't know what to expect because their world consists of bad people,
Yeah.
you um, except for just the ones in the family or a few selected that they really trust. They don't want to be known or brought attention to or anything like that. So it's kind of hard to comfort them. I do the best that I can, like knowing what they would like from what they have shown me. Um, but it was exhausting and
Yeah.
very tiring physically. I mean, I didn't even realize the tightness that my body um, felt.
When you're tense.
Yes,
Yes, your
exactly.
muscles actually hold that position
Yeah,
very tightly. And I mean, you can actually become quite sore later, not realizing that you were tense for so long.
right.
So, what about, is there fear that, let's say, Sarah or Abigail or one of the other altars might come out when you're sitting there? Is there that kind of fear?
Yes, there is. Because, for instance, Boots, um, she can be very outspoken, and she also doesn't know the difference of consequences.
Um,
So she could say what's on her mind, and go off on how she feels, and that's really not appropriate.
right.
To support like that. Um, the anger, there was a feeling of anger about the whole situation, about injustice, and injustice is a really big thing, and how these circumstances came about, and feeling like, why do I have to go through this, and they have to be there, and it's just you never know who's going to come out.
Okay.
So that's why it's always one of those. If I can get someone to go along with me, and just someone that I can trust and that might be there just to support me in case, that makes it 100% better. You know.
Okay. And did
Um,
you have that a couple days ago?
yes, I did actually. Matt took some time off in the morning, and he went with me.
Okay.
And that was, and for the first, they let him in the room to sit in the back while it was going on.
So he couldn't sit with you.
No, no.
Wow.
They told me where to sit, and like, it's very professional and very authoritative, and
Yeah.
you know, I, it was really hard for me to even get my bearings to even know what was going on, because everything just felt like it was like in a fog, and when I did get home that later that night, I found myself, my legs were tired, my arms were tired, like I had been working out all day long, and I
Yeah.
know just from the physical or the emotional strain it puts on everybody, it just it magnifies everything. What
Right.
they feel, I feel. So
Wow. Wow. And
yeah,
so it was comforting to know that Matt, your fiance, was in the room though. That helped.
yes,
And did you go with an attorney?
no, I
Okay.
didn't have one present. No,
Okay. So you didn't have anyone next to you that
no,
was able to represent for you or talk for you?
no.
Okay. Okay. And so is that pretty normal for most people living with DID, that situations such as that the extra stress, uh, produces even more stress and
Yes,
more fear,
yeah,
and that authoritative or fear? I think to some degree, being in a courtroom, you feel like it's out of your control.
yes,
There's someone else who has an authoritative
right,
voice making the decisions, and so
right.
that in itself has to be pretty scary.
It is because it's your life that they're deciding. And when you are intimidated, and you're not sure exactly what's going on or anything like that, you just kind of, you know, you're used to being talked to or told what to do. It just brings up a whole lot of bad stuff that
Yeah.
comes up. You know, you're used to that, so you are right back in, almost, you know, almost like a flashback. You're right back in someone telling you what to do and how it's going to be,
Okay.
and it's a very sickening feeling. I mean, this is something, even though I knew 2 weeks in advance I had to do this, it was up until that day it was over that the anxiety finally subsided. And that's
Okay.
hard. And that's how it is with anything. It could go to the doctors, it could be anything that involves trying to keep it together for other people. Um, you know, and not causing a scene, because if you cause a scene, then that means people are going to look at you, and that means you're the center of attention. So we don't do that because that's how we all keep the system quiet, you know. So it's
Okay.
hard.
And so there's fear of being in a situation such as a courtroom where others are not aware of dissociative identity disorder and what it
Right.
entails, and then suddenly um, you're not being in control, and one of the little ones come out or Boots comes out, and suddenly, people in the courtroom are looking at you and such. And so, um, do you have that fear all the time? Like where, so going to the doctor's office and even the grocery store?
Yes.
I mean, what's the because DID is present,
Mhm.
present in people. Why not allow it, allow them to get a glimpse and to understand? What's your thought with that?
That's a good question. That's almost like the little ones wanting to know why can't they go sit on Santa's lap?
Hmm.
And
Okay.
it's because it's explained to them that, okay, they all know that they are their age, but they also are aware and are not happy with the fact that they have to share the body with a 50-year-old.
Right.
Um, so, you know, when it comes to doctors or social visits, or, you know, holidays when everyone's around, it's there's a fight, flight, or freeze syndrome. Okay, you're always on that. There's always different degrees of it, but it's like when you walk into a room and right away you have to know what the exits are. You have to
Okay.
have a plan. You know, I can't stay in one place for over like 4 to 5 hours. It gets antsy. The little ones want to come out. There's a better chance for them to come out. Um, Sometimes, you know, if there's a family member that maybe is a child, the little ones will come out within me without coming
Because they
out and
want to
saying
play.
they are. Yeah, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
If we're at the store with Matt and there's a toy, sometimes they forget, and sometimes they're very loud, and they'll say something, and sometimes people will look and they feel ashamed. You know, they'll say, "I'm sorry, Dad, that I came out like that," and he'll say, "That's fine that you did that. It doesn't bother me at all." You know, which is it's a really reassuring thing, um, because they're not used to that. They're not used to having normal 5 or 7-year-old or
Right.
whatever age. You know, they can't do that unless they're in their own home and are allowed to do that. So I thought the same thing you asked. You know, if I want to be accepting, everyone wants to accept themselves as they are. Well, that's great. And you know what? There are some people out there that, you know, walk around and probably talk to themselves, and probably you look at them and you think, you know, they're crazy. So, you know what? It's the labeling,
Sure.
and it's the not knowing what it is. And it's not any different than having anything else. It's just that we didn't ask for this. We just have to live with it every single day.
Sure.
And
That talking about going out into situations where alters might come out. In the book that you're co-authoring, through the eyes of dissociative identity disorder. One of the writers shares, she's a college student. So is there different degrees of living with DID? How is it that she can go to college and others cannot? From what I understand, most of the writers are homebound for the most part, for all the reasons you just explained. But she's not. So how does that work?
Um, there are different degrees. When
Okay.
I first learned what this was about, now everyone dissociates. When you sit there and you're dreaming, you're in
Hmm.
dreamland. You know you're in a fog. Everyone does that, and it's just the certain degrees that you do it to. It's just like everyone has different personalities. Actually, I mean, like you are a mom, and you're also a sister,
Hmm.
and you also are a worker, and you act differently in all of those positions that you have.
Well said.
So with DID though, we have taken it to the point where these are complete identities that they are sharing one body, and they have their own likes and their dislikes. And what's funny is that there was some trauma that I am aware of that happened, and it didn't affect me for a long time. That was one of my questions. I was like, well, I know this happened, so like, okay. And then there's huge amounts of not remembering things, um, going to school, or that's they say that a lot of times, after the different degrees of having it, because I had jobs, I was able to hold down certain jobs,
Okay.
and I was a regular. I knew there was something different. I knew that I heard voices, but when it came down to it, though, everything came about, I believe, when the system knew that they didn't have to fear for their life in situations. For me, I think they started to break down and like, okay, so what is this? So what is our job now? So why can't we do this? And why can't we do that? And so they found a way out.
Okay.
And when you do that, I mean, then that's just not working together. That's everyone doing their own thing at the different times, and that just causes a lot of chaos. So it depends on um, the amount of trauma you have, the amount of personalities you have,
Okay.
what you can deal with it. Sometimes if you're into therapy and you learn coping skills at a young age, you are able to hold down a job and go to college and stuff like that. You never know. I mean, it depends. It all depends on the
It's different
person.
for everybody,
Right.
and which is true with anything.
Yeah.
You have your own filters and your own experiences and memories to formulate um,
Right.
how you're handling all of this. And so, with that being said, the final question for today is, do you think that if somebody had trauma for, let's say, a shorter period of time than someone else, are they going to have lesser personalities or a lesser number of alters, or are they going to, there's some talk about integrating and finding recovery versus, just versus not integrating and working as a system. And so, with someone who hasn't endured as much trauma as another person, are they going to have a lesser extreme of DID or be able to cope differently and have it less noticeable part of their life? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, and that's a really good question. I can speak for myself, and I can speak for all the research that I've done. Um, when it depends on each individual, because you know what, my trauma is not any different than someone else's trauma. It's all in the coping skills.
Okay.
I was told that if at a young age, um, if I was allowed therapy and was working through it, the chances of me having any more, or having a lot of personalities, would have diminished. Because I didn't. This is what happened was is that okay, you have this group of you have this trauma that happened to you, and your coping skill is to go away, and then something has your mind make creates the personality to take its place. Okay, so then when that happens, and then you are also in a position where you don't know how the world works. Everything is so different and dark, and so you make bad decisions sometimes, or there's more trauma that happens to you. So in your mind, what happens is the trauma will search in your mind for something that it can attach to that is similar. If it
Okay.
finds something, then that one personality might have two memories of something, okay, that happened. If it doesn't, then another personality is created. But not all personalities are created and hold memories that are bad. I have a few of them that were created just to do the work, or two of them, Jack, who is the Irish speaking sailor,
Hmm.
and Casey with a K, who's like a valley girl. They were created not too long ago, and they were created around the time that I found out that my daughter had a tumor and was really sick. And it was more so to be upbeat, to try and bring everybody, the system up than farther down.
Okay.
So it's amazing what your mind can do. Um, and it all depends on the person. And you know what? I mean, I could keep having them. It depends on what happens to me now, and it depends on the kind of therapy that I get.
Okay.
Integration, I can only speak for myself. These personalities help me survive.
Right.
I
Right.
don't know if I would know how to live without them. I would like to be at a point where I can function better.
Sure.
Uh,
Fair enough.
but integration, I have heard from a lot of people. Sometimes it works for people that have lesser personalities. Um, but I hear that over a certain amount of years that sometimes the personalities will come back. So what I think
Hmm.
integration is more or less is that they are in the system, they just aren't outly present.
Okay. And so um, I said that was the final question. Now I've got more in my head. Uh, can two alters hold the same memory?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
and would that memory be from different filters because personalities are different,
different
and so
perspectives.
is that how it works?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yes, it is.
and then the other question that came to mind is when you had two alters created in response to your daughter's tumor, when that tumor situation is resolved or whatever that stressor is resolved, do those personalities uh, dissolve? Do they? What happens to them?
They stay.
Okay.
They become part of the system,
Okay.
and this is what they do. So I have Jack and I have Casey with a K that interact. Like a lot of times, Jack will be the grandfatherly type that will say to my girls, how are things going? How are you doing? He's not out all the time, but he makes things aware. He's just kind of like he's like a watcher now.
Okay.
Casey likes to interact with the girls because she's like a teenager,
Sure.
and but she's very lighthearted. I mean, there's no flashbacks and there's no pain that's associated with them.
Okay.
It's just very they're just part of the family. It's really amazing how they all seem to be able to do this.
Have their part. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so they're part of the system,
Hmm.
and their actual personalities. They're
Yeah,
their own personality, and so they don't hold memories of trauma. Though, is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay, okay. And
Yeah.
so you said something earlier about how you remember trauma, but it didn't affect you. And so
Mhm.
is it fair to say that that trauma might have happened to one of your other alters? And
Yes.
just like I can witness a trauma of something happening outside the door and not actually be physically part of it, but still witness it,
Right.
and is that how it would work for, because you remember it, yet you weren't bothered by it as maybe the alter that has suffered more.
Yes.
Is that
That
how it's like?
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. Um, there's a lot of there's a lot of theories that go with that and that's something that they say is that a lot of trauma or people that have dissociative identity disorder, a lot of them will never find out what they actually have, because there's
Mm,
certain things that the symptoms and PTSD and eating disorders and everything else that goes into them, no one really is, um, unless you go to someone that specializes in it. Why would you know? How would you
right.
know? um,
Fair enough.
the whole thing is though that it depends. It totally just depends on what happens and you know the memories that are kept. And back, what I can say is that back then, before I was diagnosed, I'm sure. I mean, there were personalities that were already developed. Um, I know I don't remember things, or I don't remember feeling different about them, or feeling bad about them. I don't know the whole story.
Okay.
Is that I have bits and pieces of memory here and a memory here, but they don't fit together.
Okay.
When it comes to the trigger time, the personality that really does hold that, they're the ones that know exactly what happened, that trauma and the flashbacks and stuff like that.
Is different personalities like Boots? Does she hold certain trauma, certain type of trauma, while Abigail might hold another type of trauma? Is that how it works, and is it always consistent that way?
In my system, I can only speak for myself, but I
Hmm.
know in my system that each of my alters, I've been able to kind of go by their age of what happened in my life.
Mm,
Okay, so
okay.
I know that baby Abigail and Sarah were all part of sexual abuse at a young age, but I know that Boots was developed when I was married, and it was an abusive relationship, and she would be the one that she holds those memories, but also she's also one that kind of took it upon herself to try to fight back because she doesn't have
Mm,
consequences in mind, so that if something happened, that she might come back and try to defend, but that would only cause more pain, but she doesn't realize that.
okay.
um, and Laura, like we talked about before in one of the episodes, Laura was the one that held. She's the mother of Jessica, and she held that the trauma of not being able to have anybody to talk to when she was pregnant,
When she
and
was
also
isolated
yeah,
away, especially
so,
as a 15-year-old.
right, and
Socializing is very important to them. And
yes,
not only was she robbed of that, but she was also isolated on
yes,
purpose with a very specific intent
right,
of this is not okay, so we're going to shield you from
right.
everyone. And yeah, yeah. So, okay. All right. This brings up, I know this is a longer episode than normal, but, what about those abandonment issues
Mhm.
and the feelings of insecurity, because when you undergo trauma, it affects you're fearful, you're fearful for your life, and you
Right.
don't understand what's happening, or you can in control of it, and it then kind of erodes away at your sense of security and the fear of being abandoned.
Right.
And so, how do all of your alters have a strong sense of that fear of abandonment?
Yes.
Or let's say Jack, does he have that? Or Casey with the K, um, do they have that as well?
You know what? That's a good point. No, I don't think Jack does. I think he's more of a person of an older age that, like I said, he's the watcher. So he's really just himself in that aspect. He
Okay.
doesn't deal with those kind of things. All of the rest of them, um, there are abandonment issues. There's insecurities. There's the ones that it's affected every part of my life and their life because we don't know any different. We
Okay.
know that we must have done something bad to make this stuff happen, and then those people left. People that said, normal relationships like a divorce, say,
Hmm.
um, people handle that. It's a bad situation, anyways. No one wants to go through that. But when you have DID, um, or abandonment issues or insecurity,
Hmm.
issues, um, it's extra. It's that, oh my God, nobody loves me, and I'm. My thought used to be is that I'm never going to find anybody, and I'm going to be homeless, and I'm going
Okay.
to be on the streets, and that was a very large thought in my head, is that no one is going to understand how I am, or you hear so much negativity about DID and how people function, and you get this idea in your head that they're crazy, and it's not. It's just a form of surviving. So the abandonment issues are stemmed from the childhood. Okay, usually they're just. I mean,
And I
nobody
think
wants to.
that's safe to say for pretty much anybody.
Right.
But let
Yeah.
me ask you, Sunshine, when you had those fears of you're going to end up homeless, were you the only one that had that fear, or did Denise, who doesn't come out very often, does she hold that fear too? Um,
Yes.
okay, and so, but you take it on as the altar that's out the most.
Right.
You take that on your shoulders.
Right.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so if you weren't there, who would be? Who would take that on?
If I wasn't here, it probably would be the mother
Okay.
or the smart one.
Right.
Um, it depends, but there was a thought that I had, and that kind of went out. I'm trying to remember the insecurities I was thinking about. Okay, we don't have, in order for us to try and figure out life in relationships. Okay, because we haven't had the greatest uh, teachers.
Right.
We have to ask a lot of questions, and I can tell you that I can say to my daughters, they'll say I love you, and I'll think about that, and I'll say, and why do you love me? Well, Mom, why are you asking me that? Well, because I just do. For me and for us, it's different. We don't know how that feels. So in order for us to try and understand it, we ask a lot of questions. We have to think logically what they're talking about, because we don't necessarily feel that. I don't know that I'm a good mother. I don't know that I'm that I there's a good artist, or anything like that. And a lot of people get very they don't have patience for asking the question,
Mm,
but
gotcha.
only to verify, you know, am I doing this right? Am I thinking about this right? I mean, is this how you really feel? I mean, there's a whole lot of your whole system is you have to have it like almost rewired, because you are in constant your self-esteem. You don't think you're good enough, you don't think you're pretty enough, no one's going to ever want you, you can't do anything right. All of those, and all the personalities that hold those on top of normal everyone feels those at different times, is just enough not to want you to get out of bed in the morning. And that's happened to me a lot of times.
Sure.
That's part of the depression. And they feel depression, and when they feel it, I feel it double time.
So
And
do you all feel it at once? And like depression, does Abigail and Sarah feel it also? They're 5 and 7. Um, and so I guess that's two different questions. Do y'all have it? And then do y'all have it at once? Or different ones? And then Casey with the K comes in to lift, the mood, or Jack comes in to cheer everyone up. How does that work?
No, they don't all feel it at the same time. I can say that probably half of them do. The little ones will say outwardly, "Well, you know what? Why does Sunshine feel so bad? Why is Sunshine crying?
Hmm.
Why is Baby crying?" You know, so the depression part of it is it's severe, okay, and a
And is it
lot of
ongoing?
yes, yes, it is. There's many, they tried different medications, and unfortunately, DID, there is no cure. There is not a cure. You can improve. I don't like to hear when people say, "Well, we know you're going to improve." Well, because you don't know me and you don't know what kind of quality of life I have. Um, but the depressiveness is almost like it's a borderline all the time.
Okay.
For this, that's what it is. And then there are the times that amplify it, trigger times, or something bad. I get into an argument with Matt or my daughters, and you know what, things like that, simple things that normal people would be like, well, you know what, I know they still love me. I don't have those feelings.
Okay.
I have to say, oh my gosh, does that mean you're going to stop loving me? Did I do something wrong? Should I fix it? I mean, I don't know what I did. I'm so sorry. Here, is there anything I can do? All the time. So, people have to really stop and think about, when you have problems with abandonment and think you're unlovable and you think that you're stupid and you think you're crazy, it is a lot of work every single day to try and keep yourself above, and work at this. This is a
So
lifetime thing.
so it's like a duck sitting on the surface of the water where the duck looks unruffled, um, or the feathers look nice and calm, and underneath paddling furiously just to stay afloat. So do you feel unloved? Do you feel all those feelings of can you feel love?
That's a good question. I think so. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, not to the extent where I still have to ask. I do you still love me? I mean, when you have to ask that, then that's a pretty good indication that you're not sure. Um, a lot of times it's why? What do you see in me? Why? I mean, because you've heard nothing but bad things, so why would you want someone like me or someone, Um, there are a lot of times that I would hug my girls and I couldn't feel them.
Okay.
I couldn't feel that hug. I know I felt something. I know that I know what sadness feels like. I know what pain feels like.
Okay.
I know what depression feels like. But I'm not so sure on the love. You know,
And
it's
so the flip side of that, do you feel crazy?
no. I for a long time I did until I realized that what, this is a gift actually. Um, there are so many things that each one of them have and hold and can do,
I
and
love hearing you say that.
yeah,
Because
it took
truly,
a
that,
time.
that you are, you're all your personalities are gifted in one way or another, incredible gifts, and so I love hearing you say that. What was the turning point, though? At what point did you stop feeling crazy, and felt like, okay, this is my life. This is how I'm not crazy. I have DID. So
Right.
what was that turning point for you?
Actually, it was when I met Matt.
Okay.
And, like I said, for a long time, I always thought that I was going to be homeless. Even though I have children, and
Hmm.
most of the time, as parents, you think that if you got and they would take care of you.
Sure.
I didn't want to put that burden on them. I always felt a burden to society and to other people. It was always in my head that people have to give up so much in order to have a relationship with me, um, that I'm not capable, because a lot of times people will make you feel that way. If you don't attract, if you're not sure about people and boundaries, that people can really take advantage of that, as with
Okay.
anybody. And so I was in my own hell, as where I thought that you know what, I don't even know why I'm alive, and that's truthful. I don't know what I'm here for, because all I do is feel pain, and I'm so tired of feeling this. And when I met Matt, and I was like, well, you know what, I got to tell you something. I have this, and so it was kind of nonchalant, but I was scared to death.
I was just thinking that would be scary.
Yeah, and he just kind of accepted me. And I was like, oh, well, wait a minute. Let me tell you exactly what's wrong with me.
Like you're trying to convince him.
And he was like, he didn't know it. I was ready to give him all the books in the world of the research I've done, and he didn't want to do it. He said, you know something, I will get to know who you are by being with you.
Mhm.
Because he didn't want to have a different opinion from someone who never even lived it. And that's what I find out a lot, is that doctors and therapists and everyone will tell you exactly how it is, but I'll go in there and I'm not your textbook case. No one is.
Right,
Um,
right.
so
Well said.
getting back to Matt, he gave me that opportunity, and it was hard. And he started a relationship with every single one of the alters. And as that grew, because they all are part of me,
Hmm.
I that's when I started to grow. And I thought, you know what, this isn't so bad. And it's funny, because the other day I thought to myself, happy. You know what? I don't think I can say that I am not happy. I don't know exactly what happy is. I know that I can compare it to how I felt years ago.
Okay.
And it's different. I'm not crazy. I'm not violent. I'm not. I feel for other people because of things that I've gone through. I'm more apt to try and help them. Uh,
Actually, you're quite an empath. And speaking of empath, do you think all of the personalities are empath or just sunshine? And then that, of course, opens up another question is that do you think, for the most part, because there is no such thing as a textbook case, but do you think most people who live with D.I.D. are empaths? So, two
I do.
questions once again.
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Okay.
Only because we have, and I didn't even know what an empath was. I know that for myself, I could feel so much from talking to someone so deeply that, and you know what? The little
So,
ones too. The little ones are very open to that kind of pain also. It
well, and
depends.
so let's clarify real quick is that do you empath only pain or can you empath happiness and joy?
No, it's pretty much the pain.
Okay. And I want to venture a thought about this is that do you think it's because when you've undergone trauma, particularly in childhood, you were never shown that opportunity of what joy was because you were always on red alert, right?
Right.
And so you didn't have that frame of reference.
Right.
And so eventually, over time, it's like a muscle that if you don't engage that muscle, you quit learning how to use it. And then eventually you forget you even have that muscle. So is that a possibility of that, joy and happiness are still somewhere in there, but it's like that muscle that you long forgot you had? Or what are
Yes.
you thinking?
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Is that yes? When you don't have any of that nurturing, those those things that are supposed to be normal, okay, and you don't realize that not everyone lives like that. You
Right.
grow up in this. We weren't allowed to have a lot of friends, and we were a poor family, and things went on, and keep it in the house. That was one of the main things. You don't tell anybody your business. And so there wasn't joy. It was always there's proving. That's another major thing, is that we always feel like we need someone's approval. We need approval. I feel like I need approval to be sitting in front of you talking to you, because who am I? That's a big thing. That's It's awful. There are so many people that are able to let go of that and say, hey, I'm great as I am, and it, there's nothing wrong with me. But you know what? When you don't have that growing up, I think
Sure.
that's the thing that you're always. It doesn't matter what you do; you're always trying to get it. And
Because you fear not having approval,
yeah,
and so you
yeah,
work extra hard to
right.
to
That's
find it.
exactly what it is. And sometimes, and in those cases, you probably are never going to get that, and
Sure.
you have to find it elsewhere. And I found that. I'm finding that I'm getting approval from Matt. I'm getting approval for the artwork that comes out.
Hmm.
The writing that comes out. That is so new to me, and you know what? It feels amazing. Um, and then of course there's that you question, well, geez, maybe I'm not so great, or maybe I'm not. And I've been able to sit there and say, okay, shake that off, and just try and think of it. Lift your head up. That's what Matt says to me a lot of times. Is you know what? Lift your head up and just walk with your head held high. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Yes, because you are a wonderful, wonderful person. And, let me just validate right now. One of the things that I know and love about you is how courageous you are because you're doing this. And you are doing this to raise awareness. And there are others out there like you.
Yes.
And you want a better life for those of you who have DID. And that's an incredible gift that you're giving many. And, I've met some of the altars, and each one of them are pretty special in my heart and for different reasons. And so, the way that I see it is, and I've told you this before, to me it's like different people that live in one body. And so you are not double the blessing, you're like, 16 extra blessings in one package. I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah.
So that's how I see it. So we better wrap it up for today. But thank you so much, Sunshine, for sharing and, wearing your heart on your sleeve for the rest of us to understand. You really have so much to offer, and I'm so grateful. And when you said, who am I to be doing this? And here I'm thinking, wow, who am I to be, you know, being part of this collaboration with you. And so thank you. Thank you. It's really a treat. So, all righty, my friend, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
All right.
All right,
Bye.
take care. Bye-bye.